do you want with me?
You will be haunted by three spirits. I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Haunt me no longer!
What if you were given a second chance to get your life right? This holiday season, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future
Get away! Get away!
will give one man that chance.
This November, Walt Disney Pictures and Image Movers Digital invite you to experience the classic tale like you've never seen it before in Disney Digital 3D and IMAX 3D.
Humbug.
Okay, welcome to A Christmas Carol. Let's start. Charles Dickens was a British novelist, journalist, editor, illustrator, and social commentator who wrote such a beloved classic novel as Oliver Twist, Christmas Carol, Nicholas Nickleby, David Copperfield, A Tale of Tragedy, and Great Expectations. Dickens is remembered as one of the most important and influential writers of the 19th century. Among his accomplishments, there has been lauded for providing a stark portrait of a Victorian era underclass, helping to bring about social change. And next, his early life. Dickens was born on February 7, 1812, in Portsmouth on the southern coast of England. His father, John Dickens, was a naval clerk who dreamed of becoming rich, and his mother, Elizabeth Power, aspired to be a teacher and school director, but the family's financial situation has grown worse because John Dickens used to spend money dangerously beyond the family's means. Consequently, John was sent to prison for debt in 1824 when Charles was just 12 years old. After his father's imprisonment, Charles Dickens left school and to work in a factory. Despite his lack of formal education, he edited a weekly journal for 20 years, wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of story and non-fiction articles, lectured and performed extensively, was an indefatigable letter writer, and campaigned rigorously for children's rights, education, and other social reforms. Next, his literary success. Dickens' literary success began with the 1836 serious publication of the Pickwick Papers. Within a few years, he had become an international literary celebrity, famous for his humor, satire, and keen observations of characters and society. His novels, most published in monthly or weekly installments, narrates serial publications of narrative fiction, which became the dominant Victorian method for novel publications. And the last is his death. Charles Dickens has died on June 9, 1870 of a stroke. He was buried in Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. Thousands of mourners came to pay their respect at the grave and grow in flowers.
Okay, now I would like to tell you about plot summary and conflict of A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens tells the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, an old man who transforms his miserly ways after 4 ghostly visits one Christmas Eve. The novella begins on Christmas Eve with Scrooge, a mean and miserable, working in his counting house, and his clerk, Bob Cratchit, is working hard and trying to warm himself over a candle as Scrooge refuses to give him more coal. And then Scrooge's cheerful nephew Fred arrives to wish him a Merry Christmas and to invite him to a Christmas dinner. Scrooge responds with a grumpy "Bah," and followed by humbug. After that, 2 gentlemen enter the office as Scrooge's nephew leaves. They are collecting for the poor and homeless. Scrooge refused to give them a donation, claiming that the prisons and the workhouses should provide for such people. He declares that if they can't go to the prisons or the workhouses, the poor should die and decrease the surplus population. Back at home, Scrooge is visited by Marley. Scrooge has strange visions of the door knocker and toys bearing the face of his old business partner, Jacob Marley. He refused to believe his eye, but then Marley's ghost appears and frightens him, Scrooge by rattling his chains, and he tells Scrooge he will be haunted by 3 spirits. As promised by Molly Ghost, Scrooge is visited as the bell tolls 1 o'clock by the first of 3 spirits. The first of 3 spirits is the ghost of Christmas past. The ghost of Christmas past apparition is a strange figure seeming to be both an old man and child. The ghost shows Scrooge scene from his child and a lively scene with his cheerful old boss. Fezzik. Next, he takes Scrooge to a time where his younger self is with his fiancée, Belle. She is telling the younger Scrooge how she must have left him because he has changed and seemed to love money more than her. Then they see the girl become a woman with her happy family. Scrooge is upset and ghost return him to his bed. The second spirit is the ghost of Christmas present, who takes Scrooge to the Cratchit family, where he sees the humility with which the family tolerates its poverty. The sight of Tiny Tim, who is sick and weak, saddens him. Next, the spirit shows Scrooge his nephew and friend celebrate. They celebrate and joke about the Scrooge, how Scrooge is ridiculous fellow. Lastly, the ghost shows Scrooge 2 poor children. One is ignorance, and the second is want. The ghost disappears, and a dark wooden lantern comes towards Scrooge. The final spirit is the ghost of Christmas yet to come, who leads Scrooge through a scene relating to a man's death. He shows him to Cratchit, whose son Tiny Tim has also died. Finally, the ghost shows Scrooge the gravestone of a man the people have been talking about. It bears the name Ebenezer Scrooge. After that, Scrooge wakes up full of set for life. He presses the bed to check it is real, and then, laughing, proclaims himself and as a greedy and drunken man. He calls out of the window to a boy who tells him it is Christmas Day, and Scrooge is delighted to find the spirits have done all their work in one night. He gives the boy half a crown to buy a priced turkey from Russia and have it delivered to a Cratchit. Then he dresses and goes out into the street, where he meets one of the charity collector from the previous day. Scrooge whispers his donation to the man, and who is very grateful. Then Scrooge goes to church and at last to his nephew Fred for Christmas dinner. The next day, Scrooge knows how to celebrate Christmas. Scrooge offered Bob Cratchit a pay rise and promised to help look after his family. He learns how to laugh at himself and eventually become known as a man who knows how to celebrate Christmas. The end. This is all the plot summary. Okay, let's move to the next topic. I want to tell you about the conflict. There are many instances of conflict within A Christmas Carol. Some are internal conflict, where the character has conflicting feelings within himself, and others are external conflict, where a character has an agreement or fight with another character. Let's move to the first one, the internal conflict. The internal conflict in the novella is when Scrooge visits his nephew Christmas celebration with his gold of Christmas present, and he experienced the push and pull between his greed and his old memories of joyous family time with his sister. The external conflict is when Scrooge's bitterness isolates him from anyone he ever comes across. And on Christmas Eve, we see him get into a fight with his nephew Fred, and who just want to invite him to a Christmas dinner and excuse his crashes of them because Christmas is a paid vacation day, and yell. And another one is he yelled at a neighbor collecting money for the poor. It's nice attitude and body. Okay.
Ebenezer Scrooge. He is miserable, tight-fisted, redeemed by the end. Scrooge is the main character of Dickens' novella and the first presented as a miserly and wretched man. He rejects all offerings of Christmas cheer and celebrations. The three separate of Christmas visit the stodgy bean counter in hope of reversing Scrooge's greedy, cold-hearted approach to life. By the end of the story, Scrooge is a changed man and sharing his wealth and generosity with everyone. Bob Cratchit. He is a Scrooge clerk, a kind, mild, and very poor man with a large family. Though treated harshly by his boss, Cratchit remains a humble and dedicated employee. Jacob Marley. In the living world, Ebenezer Scrooge's equally greedy partner, Marley died 7 years before the narrative opens. He appears to Scrooge as a god, commanded to wander the world by inheritance. Marley hopes to save his own partner from suffering a similar fate. Tiny Tim is the one of Bob Cratchit's sons. He walks with a crutch and has his limbs supported by an iron frame. Despite his physical difficulties, he is a positive and generous child. He thinks of others and is well loved by his family. The Ghost of Christmas Past. The first spirit to visit Scrooge, a curiously childlike apparition with a glowing head. He takes Scrooge on a tour of Christmases in his past. The spirits use a cap to dampen the light emanating from his head. The Ghost of Christmas Present. The second spirit to visit Scrooge, a majestic giant clad in a green robe. His lifespan is restricted to Christmas Day. He escorts Scrooge on a tour of his contemporaries' holiday celebration. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. The third and the final spirit to visit Scrooge, a silent phantom clad in a hood black robe. He presents Scrooge with an ominous veil of his lowly dead. Fred, Scrooge's nephew, a gentleman who loves Christmas. He invites Scrooge to his Christmas party each and every year, only to be repelled by his grumpy uncle.
The theme of the novel. The theme is generosity of spirit. Scrooge's nephew Fred first saw the theme when he praised Christmas as the only time when men and women seem by one chosen to open their shut-up heart freely. Fred's language indicates that for Dickens, generously involved more than the giving of money to open their shut-up heart freely. Fred's language indicates that for Dickens, generously involved
More than the giving of money is required the giving from one goodwill and compassion throughout A Christmas Carol. The example we see of generosity and more about the spirit in which something is required the giving from one goodwill and compassion throughout A Christmas Carol. The example we see of generosity and more about the spirit in which something is giving than the thing itself from the show's Christmas offer, food and wine the young scroll and fan, or a modest but joyful celebration, spoon roasted by Mr. and Mrs. Frasings, or overfed offer the assistance to a brevet, Bob Cashett, in a future that does not come to pass. As Bob said, now it wasn't for the sake of anything might be able to for us, too much as the thinking kind way that this was quite generosity for spirit for define Christmas for Dickens, and thus and goes a long way toward fighting through humanity for him as well. The next is important quotation. There are many things from which I might have struck good, but which I have not profiled. I dare say return the nephew Christmas among the race, but I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time when it has come around, part from the variations due to its scared name and origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that. As a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one chosen to open their shut hearts freely and think of people below them, as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave and not another phrase of creature born and author journey, and therefore uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I really that it has done me good and will do me good, and I say, God bless it. Yes, and this is setting of the Christmas Carol. The story takes place in a creamy town called London. The story takes time in 18,000 century at Christmas time. Yeah, and this is the tone of the tale. The tone is entirely serious and sad. The narrator controls the tone of the novel using different style throughout the tale. At the beginning, the narrator is shady and eager to draw the reader in. As the story progresses, the narrator becomes more emotional as the tale gets darker. At the end of the novel, the narrator is again light-hearted for the happy and uplifting ending. Mood. The mood of the story. The mood helps emphasize Dickens' message. For much of the novel, the mood is festive and jolly. However, Dickens darkens the mood when he wants to emphasize the social responsibility he is trying to put across.
And next is literary techniques of this story. A Christmas Carol is a novella. Novella is a midway between short story and novels. The novella is split into 5 steps. A step is a set of 5 parallel lines on which a musical note is written. By referring to the chapter as steps, Dickens suggests that the novel will be a joyous, uplifting, and moral tale. Using the term step also linked with the title of novella as a carol is a traditional Christmas song. Dickens gives each step a clear purpose. The first step introduces us to the character of Scrooge, highlight his many flaws. It also sets up the event that brings about his redemption. The middle 3 steps recount Scrooge's past, present, and future, and lead him to meet the 3 girls who teach him the error of his ways. The 5 steps remind us of events of the first step, such as the charity collectors, giving the novella a circular structure that shows us how the events of the story have changed Scrooge. Dickens used personification to help bring the setting of the novella to life. Okay, let's start. Onion in the green grocer shops appears ruddy, brown-faced, broad-girthed, as the sits winking from the shelves. This playful example of personification makes the city seem exciting and alive and reflect the energy surrounding Christmas. Dickens used similes to create a comic moods, even a sinister, even frightened image of Marley in chains is softening by a humorous simile. Wound about him like a tale. Dickens used symbol through the novella to communicate his ideas. Marley's chain is made out of a cash box, keys, padlock, and ledgers. This symbolizes Marley's obsessions with money and how it has to lead him to ignore his fellowmen. Next, fire and brightness are used to symbolize emotional warmth throughout the novella. The lack of warmth in Scrooge's life is depicted by a very small fires in his office and a very low fires at his home. And music is used to show joy, happiness at Fezziwig's parties and at Fred's house. Fred's musical family is shown in contrast to lonely, miserable Scrooge. And weathers reflects Scrooge's character and emotions, and he is described as carrying cold within him, and his presence at his office. Scrooge's cold and bitter personality is shown as being more formidable than the weathers, and the narrator makes this clear with no warmth could warmth, no wintry weather chill him, no wind that blows was bitterer than he.
The criticism of the work. The literature Christmas Carol is a crucial literature which provides comic touches and intensely sentimental. It conveys significant moral lessons that the writer Dickens uses his novella to remind the readers all of the importance of joy and togetherness, particularly at Christmas time. The theme of this story is look back at your past mistakes so they can't be repeated. Something in the past could possibly lead to the answer that you seek in the future ahead. According to the page 55 of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge says, "And I learned a lesson which is working now. Tonight, if you have aught to teach me, let me profit by it." He means that he learned about his past mistakes and what he missed out on. Scrooge learned about how he was back then compared to how he is now. Furthermore, this literature has shown that society can be transformed for the better through generosity, empathy, and compassion, which is money doesn't automatically bring you happiness, as Scrooge thought. He is not a happy man, despite being incredibly rich. On the other hand, Bob Cratchit and his family are happy, even though they are dirt poor. Consequently, I think that this literature is very beneficial for readers to take Scrooge lessons as the way to live in the world happily. Thank you.
Everyone went to the greatest Christmas party, and since then, Scrooge has become the most loved man in town.
We wish you a Merry Christmas and a